relaxed and jovial, Governor Romney did not confirm he intends to run for president, but he came close.
In the last few days, the most frequently asked question I get is, what does Ann think about all this? And she believes that people get better with experience.
Maybe they do and maybe they don't. Is there anything we don't already know about Mitt Romney? 2 turns trying to be president, twice turned away, and he's been out kissing babies and taking shots at Hillary Clinton in recent weeks. Okay, now what has he decided to do and how this is going to turn the 2016 elections on a dime? This is where we need to go at this point. Let's go ahead and get started right here. Let's welcome back in first from opposing sides. He was once the Deputy Staff Secretary to President Bill Clinton, now turns as a Democratic strategist. David Goodfriend joins us on the phone. And rightly speaking next, Director of Health Policy at the Independent Women's Forum, Hadley Heath Manning joins us. David, Hadley, welcome aboard, because here we are now. We get to be the first ones to decide good news or bad news. And I tell you what, David, I'm going to have to start with you on this. As a Democrat, and seeing as Hillary Clinton is probably going to be the nominee, and Nancy Pelosi just a couple of days ago said she hopes that Mitt Romney is going to be the nominee, Democrats, I think, might have to be a little bit upset that Mitt's not running, because you figured you could beat him, couldn't you?
Yeah, I would have to confess being a little disappointed if Mitt Romney is not the nominee. And I, without being too glib about it, though, I think there's an important reason why, and that's because Republicans and Democrats both seem to be coalescing around this notion that the 2016 election will be about the middle class and upward mobility and wage stagnation and things that really hit the pocketbook of the American middle class. And so having Mitt Romney as the Republican standard bearer would have just been like, swinging at a piñata, because we could have said all day long, this is the wealthiest of the wealthy trying to tell you, the middle class, what to do while you sit there and lose jobs and lose wages. And it would have been a beautiful thing.
Come on, David, gloat.
Come on,
David, gloat a little bit. Go ahead, David, gloat a little bit. This is your chance to do it.
Listen, I want to get invited back on, man. I like Newsmax.
No, that's all right. Look, we know that you're from the left, and we know, look, I've already gotten emails from friends of mine who are on the left, and they're saying, darn, we really wanted Mitt to run. It's the height of sarcasm here. So wait a minute. I'm going to let you go ahead and get your gloating up and get it all ready here.
Well,
I
really did want him to run, and I really believe that it's going to be a critical issue for both Democrats and Republicans to address. That is wage stagnation, upward mobility, and the pressure on the middle class. The party that answers that question best will win this election.
All right, now I'm going to have to stop you there. Hang on a sec. I'm going to let you. You've had a chance to load up here. I gave you that open opportunity here. You stopped a little bit before you got there. Hadley, go ahead next, because from the Republican side of things, I've also gotten notes from friends of mine on the right, and they're basically going, whew, really, thankfully he's not running. We love Mitt, but thankfully he's not running. What do you think?
That's right. Mitt Romney is a very smart guy. I think he didn't make this decision lightly. He's probably looking at a lot of polling data. He's a very polished politician, expert speaker, and has a lot of resources tied up, especially among the establishment side of the Republican Party. So his exit from the race, I think there are some clear winners here. Probably the biggest winner of all is Jeb Bush, who may be the leading establishment candidate now. But any GOP governor, really, or former governor candidate that Republicans are going to take very seriously, like Walker or Jindal or Christie, those are beneficiaries too, I think, of a Romney exit. So it does breathe some oxygen back into the GOP side of the race.
All right, now I got about a minute left before we take a break, come back and discuss, but this is for you, Hadley. We understand that Governor Romney is going to have dinner tonight with Chris Christie. Ooh, let's open up all of those little Pandora's boxes. Should we take anything from that?
Well, certainly I think Romney has expressed interest in trying to help whomever the Republican GOP nominee is in 2016. So he's going to be a big part of supporting the Republican side, regardless of who the nominee eventually is.
All right. Now, I'll give you 30 seconds on this, David, now that you've had a chance to sit here and stew on it. Who do you think now is the number one? Do you think Jeb Bush gets it, in your opinion, right now, the way we sit today? And could he beat Hillary Clinton?
I do think that Jeb Bush becomes the de facto front runner before the running actually starts. I think he has the infrastructure, the name recognition, the fundraising potential. He really has all the tools that a presidential campaign needs. However, can he beat Hillary Clinton? Every single poll that has been done on precisely that question says not by a long shot. So things would really have to change in the course of the campaign. And what's interesting to me is you have two very well-known people here, very well-known names. So it's not going to be as easy to switch people's opinions over the course of the campaign.
Okay, hang tight. We're far from done with today's Mitt Moment, the ripple effect. There are issues to discuss, opponents to consider, and we talked about one of them. That means Hillary Clinton. More when we continue right here on MidPoint. Mitt's moment of decision, the political shockwaves across the nation. Welcome back into MidPoint. We can now see him. He's now willing to go ahead and show his face. Democratic strategist and former Deputy Staff Secretary to President Bill Clinton, David Goodfriend on the left. Rightly speaking, Hadley Heath Manning is Director of Health Policy at the Independent Women's Forum. David, you get to stew for a moment here because we're going to make you think about this. I'm going to go to Hadley first. All right, Hadley, so Mitt Romney is now out of the race. Everybody believes it's Jeb Bush now, and a lot of people are even anointing him at this point. Wait a minute. This is January. We are a year and a half away at best. Aren't we just really putting the cart before the horse here and saying that just because it's a Bush name here, that people are automatically going to go for him?
I agree with you, Ed. It's still very early. We're not even sure who exactly is in yet and who exactly is out yet. Mitt Romney's decision today is certainly a very significant one, but I believe 2016 is going to be a very different election from the midterm elections in 2014 and even the last presidential cycle where Democrats were essentially having to defend a sitting unpopular president, and then in 2014 Republicans really capitalized on that. So in 2016, both parties, I believe, are going to be about charting a new path forward for the country. And as Republicans try to do that, I think their best bet is to rely on a new face and a new name and a new personality to do
See,
that.
you must have been reading from Mitt Romney's statement today because he said almost exactly that. He took a little jab at Jeb Bush where he basically said that Jeb, at 61 years of age, maybe we need somebody fresh. All right, Hadley, I'll give you your shot. One person who is the fresh face on the side of the Republicans right now that you believe would be a good candidate.
You know, it's very difficult for me to say. I think that Scott Walker is someone who maybe hasn't been talked about enough in terms of his presidential potential because he's been elected 3 times in the last 4 years as governor of Wisconsin. He is a fresh face on the national scene, and I think someone who would be relatable. And, you know, I tend to agree with David. I think a lot of the questions in 2016 will be about middle-income families and about improving their lives, improving the take-home pay, and making sure that their salaries and their wages actually outpace inflation. This is a guy, Scott Walker, who can really speak to what it's like to be from a blue-collar part of the country, and I believe he's sort of underrated, hasn't been talked about enough.
All right, now there's a little agreement here. David, I'm going to get to you now with Hillary Clinton. She said she's going to wait maybe until July to decide what she's going to do. From the left, would you not be wringing your hands at this point going, wonderful now, we've got more time to tune up at this point, we don't care who it is. You are that confident, A, Hillary's going to be the nominee, B, Hillary can beat anybody the Republicans throw at her?
Well, I think overconfidence is a very bad disease in politics, and nothing should be taken for granted. Certainly Hillary Clinton believed that she was the presumptive nominee in 2008, and look at what happened there. So I don't think she's taken anything for granted, and certainly I don't think Democrats are either. What you do have in the Democratic Party is an interesting tug of war, not unlike what's going on in the Republican Party with the Tea Party faction. There are plenty of activist Democrats who want to bring Elizabeth Warren into the equation. There are plenty of candidates like Martin O'Malley, former governor of Maryland, and even the current governor of New York, who've been talked about as possible alternatives to Hillary. They're not going anywhere. Even though Elizabeth Warren denies any intention of running, I think if something were to implode in Hillary land, those candidates are...
Wait a minute. I'm not going to let you off the hook on that one. What do you think would implode? What do you mean?
Well, I think if Hillary Clinton is not careful, she's going to be defined by her opponents on the right, and I think that's extremely dangerous. I think personally, I believe postponing a launch of the campaign poses its own set of risks for her because she lets others define her. And I think even though she's riding very high in public opinion polls right now, she can't count on that. That's not momentum. That's not message. That's just status quo. And I think she needs to really treat this like a fight and get in earlier rather than later, or else she is going to become outflanked on both the left and the right.
Okay, only got about a minute left. So, David, a quick answer from you then, 10, 15 seconds. Whom on the Republican side do you think the Democrats do fear?
Well, I think if it's not Jeb Bush, I think someone like Marco Rubio presents a significant risk to Democrats because he can position himself as a moderate on a lot of issues and reach out to Latinos, which are a key voting constituency of Democrats right now. I think it's somebody along those lines, not Scott Walker. I hate to say, I'm from Madison, Wisconsin, born, raised, and educated, and I don't see him as capable of taking on a national campaign against Hillary Clinton.
Hadley Heath, 30 seconds left. I saw you shaking your head when he mentioned Marco Rubio.
Certainly in terms of national electability, I think Marco Rubio is a great name and he's got a great record and he's a very young candidate, could not only reach out to the Latino voting bloc, but to young voters as well. So I certainly agree with David. Marco Rubio would be a formidable candidate. Walker, we'll see. I think he's got a great record on the policies, but in terms of politics, I agree with David. He may have some hurdles to overcome in terms of national attractiveness.
All this today, and guess what? We have just begun. Everything just got interesting again and entertaining in the world of politics, with all respect to Governor Romney. David Goodfriend, don't worry about it, David. You're always invited back. You can show your face again, not a problem. Hadley Heath Manning, always a pleasure again. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You people should be ashamed of yourselves for watching the Super Bowl and just helping send a message to the NFL that you're okay with drug abuse, sexual violence, and teams cheating. That's the opinion of our next guest, with whom we will opine together on MidPoint.